I'm now 31 male, but this happened in 2014 when I was 26 and my ex-fiancé was 25 female. Let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement with a wedding date booked by the 4th year. Neither of our parents are well off financially, and she was attending grad school, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $20,000 that was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Leading up to that nightmare of an evening, we had our typical mid-20s relationship issues with bouts of poor communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial bullcrap. Aside from that, we had a great relationship and spent a ton of time together figuring out post-college life and planning for our future. As I said above, the wedding and reception venue cashed my check 4 days before the wedding, and the contract stated this was non-refundable. Over 120 guests were confirmed, a couple dozen from out of state. Tuxes and bridesmaid dresses were fitted and paid for, and everything was falling into place. Now let's get to the inevitable crap storm of events that you're all interested in before I keep rambling. The night in question was a Friday evening in our new apartment that we'd moved into a few weeks prior, and we decided to have about a dozen friends over to pre-game and head out to the bars in town. Included in this group of friends was my buddy whom I've known since kindergarten. We'll call him Ricky. Barb and I had spent a lot of time with Ricky over the last 3 years, and he was definitely one of my pals, which is generally awesome when your SO gets along with people in your social circle. The night started at a local hookah lounge that was BYOB, so by the time we left there, a 1 of 5 of Jameson and 30 rack of Yangling were gone and everyone was buzzed. The next 3 hours were spent between 2-3 bars that resulted in the entire group devolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, most people went home with the exception of myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came back to our apartment for a nightcap. Once back at our place, the couple only lasted another 20 minutes before calling it and making their way home, so I was left with Barb and friggin' Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb checking her phone more than usual, and simultaneously Ricky checking his phone after she would lock the screen. I almost put 2 and 2 together, but why would I worry about them planning anything shady 2 days before I was supposed to marry this girl? Back at my house, I was fairly sober and noticed all the booze was gone, so I was contemplating picking up a couple of 6-packs from a local spot that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were definitely on the liquor and tanked, but there was no reason to suspect anything sketchy would occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my car and preparing to exit my apartment complex, I got a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right, and it completely freaked me out. So I called my best bud, and he agreed to be picked up and join me on the beer run and accompany me back to the apartment. After grabbing some Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room that had a sectional to the immediate right. We opened the door, took 2 steps inside the apartment, and my ex-fiancé was completely topless and mounted on Mr. Ricky freaking Tonsil deep down each other's throats. The amazing part of the situation was neither of them appeared to notice that my buddy and I were 10 feet away watching their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7-10 seconds of attempting to comprehend the current situation, I lost it. Dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky completely topless, and landed 2 hard right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still laying on his back with the most terrified look on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6', 220 lbs and have played hockey my entire life. He is 5'6", 140 lbs and a runner. Immediately following the assault with my fist, Ricky started snoring. Didn't know this was a thing, and was asleep for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the situation. Without thinking, I called her parents about 10 times until they woke up and demanded they come to pick up their cheating daughter immediately. Their house was only 5 minutes down the road, so they walked in shortly thereafter while I was laying into Barb about her unforgivable, disgusting decision. Her parents frantically walked into me screaming at Barb, Ricky assed out on the couch, and my buddy mediating the situation. The first thing I told everyone was the wedding was off. I demanded the ring back and said I'd rather lose 20 KE than spend the rest of my life with a cheating witch. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes attempting to talk me out of it and occasionally defending Barb's actions, saying things like, "Why can't you forgive her?" or "Isn't it too late to cancel the wedding?" Meanwhile, Ricky woke up and the right side of his face had swollen to the size of a grapefruit, and his left eye was completely shut. Kicking him out of the apartment was tough because he was too drunk to drive, so I called his brother, who was 20 minutes away, and spent that time lying to Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, I was able to stay level-headed enough to express my thoughts in such an extreme state of rage. The few times I've been this upset in the past, my brain felt like it was scrambled, and I had a hard time condensing and forming my thoughts into logical statements. Not this time. By the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Barb's parents shuttled her home, I had systematically picked apart any objection, opinion, or plea for reconsideration expressed by everyone in the room. It felt really freaking great. I'm not going to pretend the following months were easy and everything worked out in my favor. 2 months later, the pharma company I worked at decided to lay off my entire division. I had racked up thousands in credit card debt to pay for the wedding. Unemployment haunted me for 5 months, and I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was screwed up for a few years, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But now that I'm 31, things have settled down, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Second story. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are both 26, and we have a 5-year-old son and 10-month-old girl together. I work as one of the managers at an IT company whilst she works as a receptionist at a hospital. She hasn't been working much due to pregnancy and maternity leave. I'm quite an outgoing person, whereas she is quite introverted and only really enjoys spending time with close family members, her family plus me and the children, and friends she's known since childhood. On Saturday, July 1st, 2023, an ex-employee from my place of work, age 23, came to my house thinking I would be around because he knows I don't work on Saturdays. He wanted to give me important documents that I had left at his house the previous day when we were discussing work-related matters. My wife opened the door and didn't know who he was, so he explained himself that he works for me, and then she allowed him inside and offered him coffee whilst he waits for me. I was at my parents' house 5 miles away. This is what happened next, according to this ex-employee, as best I can remember him saying over the phone 2 days ago, our conversation. Employee: do you know about me and your wife? Me: what do you mean? Explain. Employee: remember that day last month when you weren't home and I came to drop off documents and sorry because I should have called you beforehand? Me: yes, so what? Employee: after your wife invited me in and offered to make coffee, we began to talk and quickly bonded over literature. She was very friendly, and I know what I'm about to tell you was very wrong of me to do, but we started kissing, and your son, who came into the living room at that moment, then asked who I was, and she told him not to worry, that he should just go watch TV. We then went upstairs and, slept together. Me: are you joking? Because if you're just trying to cause trouble, don't. Employee: no, it's not a lie. I just thought I would tell you because that little boy saw his mother with someone else, and years down the line, if you ever did find out, I wouldn't want you to think that I scared a little boy without caring. Remember that your wife is the married one, not me. I didn't force her. Me: I don't believe you at all. Employee: that is why I resigned, 7th July, because I didn't know whether you knew or not and would rather resign than have a sacking on my record. Me: I'll ask her, and if true, I'll deal with you appropriately. Employee: okay, but like I said, I didn't force her, nor did I do anything illegal. You won't hear from me again. Sorry. I was livid with anger and hurt at the same time. This is an employee who only started working for me in May, and I'm certain she never even knew he existed up until that day. I asked her. She denied it at first, but then owned up to what happened after she realized the severity of the situation, including the employee quitting. She said she was very sorry and doesn't know what came over her. I then said, apparently our son saw you. And then she began crying. I said to her that I was going to stay with my parents for a few days whilst I decide what to do. My parents, and even her family members too, are very supportive of me and do not condone what she did. I've seen my son on FaceTime and baby daughter too, and told them that I will be with them soon. I've decided that there is no coming back from this, and will definitely get a divorce from my wife, but the only issue is custody and finances. I don't want to be like the many men who get a divorce due to the fault of their wives, only to lose the house and only see the kids on the weekends. How do I go about this to ensure I don't lose the house and that I see my kids as equally, if not more than her?